Welcome to Mental Health Mondays. We are so happy for you to be here with us. We're happy to be here. Welcome, Dr. White. Good to
So good
see
to
you.
so good to be with you, Sister Atonte.
Yes, we want to say special hello to our producer, Amra Sowell. She's always here and faithful, helping us here behind the scenes. So just want to say hi to her and let everyone know
Oh,
that's who's helping us this evening and many times when we're doing Mental Health Mondays. Yeah, just put in the chat where you guys are watching from, where you're viewing from. Um, it's where you most of you know we're going to be talking about forgiveness again, and what that looks like, and the many different facets of forgiveness. Well, this is part two because we talked about it last week, and you guys were enjoying it so much and feel like we were just not getting to everyone's questions in the 1 hour time slot that we have. So we wanted to talk about it again because forgiveness is such a huge
for
topic.
sure.
It's
This evening, I'm gonna start by forgiving Clint for not being first in the chat like he usually
he,
is.
I know he was on here early, but he wasn't the first. And that's like, wow.
Understand. No,
Actually, let me see. The first one, I know we're going to get to, it says B. Davis. So, B. Davis,
exactly.
you were the first one. You were on before we even went live. And so, we're definitely going to try to answer your question because you were here first. And so, it's
That,
our first question.
that's
But
okay,
yeah,
Clint. We still love you, though. We still love you, so it's
yes,
all good.
you're he's still your bestie. Still your bestie. All right. Want to say hi to Mari in Jonestown, Pennsylvania. Thank you for watching Mental Health Mondays. Thank you for joining us. Please share on your social media, those who are watching. And if you were watching last week, let them know that you're watching this mental health program and we're talking about forgiveness. So let them know exactly what you're doing and why they should join. We have Patricia Johnson from Mount Vernon, New York. Welcome, Patricia. Great to see you here. Yes, we're just happy to see everyone that is here. So please continue to put in the chat where you're viewing from, and to let you know, you can ask your questions, you can send comments, because we're talking about forgiveness. And I think I mentioned this during the Sabbath program this weekend. There were question and answers there as well. But I think I talked about, we most of the times it's hardest to forgive, and maybe it wasn't specifically on forgiveness, but it still applies. It's hardest to forgive family that we're close to. It's hard to forgive those who we're closest to, those who we love the most, because when they hurt us or do something, um, again, to hurt us that we weren't expecting or whatever, it hurts a lot. And so, when people do things that need to be forgiven, it can really take the relationship downhill, and it just makes it very difficult. And it could be we know from talking last week that it affects your mental health, it affects your physical health when we hold on to an unforgiving spirit. But we're going to talk about it again, what that forgiveness looks like, because a lot of times people think that forgiveness means that you must reconcile, and it doesn't always look like that every single time. So we're going to discuss that as well, because some people are afraid to forgive because they think like, oh, I have to, join and connect and live life again, just like we used to with that person. And maybe the situation is not safe enough to do that, or there's many different reasons why you may not have to do that.
Right.
So we're going to look at that.
Well, one of the cool things about the book, or if therapists are interested in even practicing forgiveness, there's a section of the book where they dedicate it, and actually, it's chapter 3 where they talk about what forgiveness is not.
Okay. And let's talk about,
Okay.
you said the book.
Oh
Some
yeah,
of these people weren't here with us last week. So what book are you talking
sure.
about?
The book is entitled Helping Clients Forgive, and it's really a textbook, but
Mm,
it's a summary, a review of the record for the research basically done on forgiveness. And so they compiled it into a book.
right. Okay.
So yeah, it's really helpful because, if you're dealing with trauma,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of the things that are a core part of any psychotherapeutic practice, you're going to be dealing with forgiveness themes.
Oh,
Um,
of course.
you're going to be dealing with forgiveness themes. And so to have this kind of proficiency and understanding, hey, what's the system for how I approach forgiveness? It's really helpful. But it's cool.
Right.
They actually highlight, hey, what is forgiveness not? And I can give you a little, taste of kind of one of the things of the kind of stuff that they talk about.
Yeah, while you're looking for that, I wanna take the very first question we had because B. Davis brought
Yeah,
it on before we were even on the air, and I wanna go at least read it and kinda go over that, and then I want you to jump right into what forgiveness is not according to
absolutely.
this book. Okay, so B. Davis is asking, if Jehovah has truly forgiven me, why do I still suffer from suicidal thoughts? And I'm paraphrasing a little bit, and not experiencing his joy as God has promised. I do all that he is
Yeah,
or
you gotta clarify that, Mr. Davis. I do
yeah.
all that is what? Because that's in a very important
I
phrase.
think it's supposed to say right or all that. I don't know.
Yeah, that would be yeah, that's an important
Yeah.
thing that you need to clarify. So just take another stab and just add that.
Yeah, if you want to just rephrase that, but we do want to get to your
So
question.
yeah, so if Jehovah is truly forgiving me, why do I still suffer from suicidal, thoughts? It's interesting because Paul in Romans talks about this very issue. It's really interesting.
Mhm.
Paul says, "The things that I want to do, that I do.
Uh,
The things that I don't want to do, the things I don't
that
want to do, that's the thing I do. And the things that I should do, that's what I don't. Oh,
right.
wretched man that I am. Who
Yes.
can deliver me from this body of sin?"
Yes.
So when we talk about mental health, part of what we're championing is the mind is the battleground.
Right.
The mind is the battleground, and with the mind being the battleground, that's where the battle is taking place.
Mhm.
So what B. Davis was alluding to is a battle. Um,
Right.
you know, if you're going to experience peace, it's because you've waged war. Um,
Mhm.
and so the reality is, it's not surprising that there's a temptation to not experience the peace that God is offering.
Mhm.
um we're told that the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but also deceive. So we're constantly going to be bombarded with ideas of insufficiency, of lacking, of of feeling like we are not forgiven, and there might even be urges to harm ourselves. But let's
Mhm.
pause for a second. When you're talking about suicidal thoughts, you might not be responsible for those suicidal thoughts. You
Mhm.
are responsible for the recovery. And when you're at the level of suicidal thinking, that's when you really should be getting and investing in professional mental health treatment.
Yes.
So that's really, really important. By the time you're thinking about and you're having serious urges to end your life, that warrants professional mental health specified treatment. So
Mhm.
in a like so what we are championing is the preservation of mental health. That's what these kind of settings are for. But when things are that acute, okay, that's where that deserves the kind of attention. So it's the equivalent to having a broken arm and showing up in a forum like this and
Mhm.
saying, what can I do about my broken arm? Like, that's an acute issue that needs
Right.
specific attention.
Yes.
You can't get care for a broken arm in a group context. So
Mhm.
we definitely want you to understand that. Of course, we're happy you guys are here, but we definitely want you to know when you need professional, one-on-one, individualized treatment, because what happens in treatments is strategies to help you
Mhm.
deal with what you're going through. And
Yes.
a lot of times people don't realize that mental issues occur on a spectrum. There's
Mhm.
there's what can respond to just a good encouragement, nudge, therapeutic intervention, to you need hardcore intervention. Like, so it's a
Right.
spectrum. And people will often treat one mistakenly when in fact, no, like they deserve different levels of intensity. What were you going to say, sister?
I was just going to say, I like the example that you used with Paul, and, you know, forgiveness, God forgiving us, being tempted or having thoughts of suicide or other thoughts that are not coming from God, and that are not what He wants us to think or feel or believe, is not proof that God has not forgiven us. And that's why the example of Paul um, is such an amazing example of, or all the examples that we see in the Bible. I mean, these are people who struggled. These are people who, sometimes did not think the way that God wanted them to think, but that He loved them. I'm thinking, I don't know if you saw the sermon by Pastor Myers 2 weeks ago,
Oh my
but
goodness.
yeah, but even like with Moses, right? Like he was angry and struck the rock and did exactly what God didn't want him to do. But where is Moses right now?
Right.
He's in
Right.
heaven.
He's in heaven.
So
He's in, yeah.
yes. So it's the mercy that God extends to us. So the thought that God has not forgiven you or not loving you because you're still having these thoughts, that thought is from the enemy, because he wants you not to understand God's love and His mercy. But just following up what Dr. White was saying, that it is, if you're having these thoughts, which you say you are, it is so important to be connected to a mental health team. And if you are not already established with a mental health professional, to talk these things out and to take a real in-depth, more in-depth look into what's going on. And maybe we can put this on the screen as well. There's 988. That's a number you can call, you can text, and there's going to be someone on the other side of that line that can help you walk through some of these things while you're in the process of still finding a mental health professional for yourself, a personal therapist or psychiatrist, or whatever that case may be for you. The 988 is available at any time, day or night. So we encourage anyone that is having these suicidal thoughts and you're needing to speak to someone right away, dial 988.
And don't sleep on the local county
Yeah.
resources, because a lot of times they're actually staffed by very skilled clinicians,
Yes.
and they're actually sometimes very well resourced in order to address mental health needs. I think the case of Paul is a special one, because here he's guilty because he's orchestrated the killing of Christians. Now, whatever guilt you may have, I doubt you are having to deal with feeling the guilt of having known you've killed Christians. Well, that was his burden. Like, how do you work that one off?
Hmm.
But you can see our struggles. We're in good company. If you really read those stories, we're in good company. The battleground is in the mind, and we
Hmm.
definitely encourage you to get all the tools necessary to win this battle and ultimately the
Hmm.
war. Um,
Yes.
Now look at this question from Veronica Roderick. How do you reconcile and forgive a parent who is now dealing with dementia and no useful conversation can take place at this point? How do I work out forgiveness within myself? Veronica, um, I don't want to say sincerest condolences, but I just want to say we feel your pain.
Hmm.
And this is tough,
Yeah.
and thank you for volunteering that. Much the way B. Davis did as well. These are very
Yeah.
courageous, and you guys are coming forward. So, really and truly, props to you. How do you reconcile and forgive? So, her question prompts me to kind of go into what forgiveness is not. Okay, and it's quite
Yeah.
a list of things that it's not.
Okay. Let's look at
Forgiveness
that.
is not, it's not pardon, it's not legal mercy, leniency. Okay,
Mm.
it's not condoning and excusing, it's not reconciling. Okay, it's not conciliation. Okay.
Mm.
Forgiveness is not justification. It's not forgetting. Forgiveness
Mm.
is not forgetting. It's
Right.
not becoming disappointed. Okay. One can be disappointed without being unjustly treated by another. It's not balancing scales. It's not self centering. All right. um it's not letting time heal the wound. Okay, it's not abandoning resentment, it's not possessing positive feelings, it's not saying I forgive you, it's not making a decision to forgive. Okay. So
Mhm.
anyway, the bottom line being there is a list of things that it really and truly is not. So for you therapists who are thinking about utilizing the book, just know that there will be an important part. Or if you're putting together a workshop, it's critical to know that part of the workshop is defining those things that forgiveness is not. So just be aware of that. So back to you, Veronica. You said, how do you reconcile and forgive a parent who is now dealing with dementia? So I found it very important in my life experience that
Mhm.
I not necessarily put my need for something external. So so in other words, in order for me to have a good day, I'm going to need my sister Atonte to have a kind word for me. Um,
Mhm.
um, I may not have a good day as a result. I'm,
Really? Are they?
I'm just, I'm just playing. I'm just
I know
playing.
you're joking.
I'm just joking,
That's funny.
right? But imagine that, and what
Mhm.
a burden.
Mhm.
And me calling you, and you didn't tell me some nice things, so I'm having a bad day. You're like,
Right.
get over yourself. Um, but on a serious note, as it relates to now parents, for example, um, in your case, you highlighted the issue of dementia being the reason. In other cases, Veronica, it could be that the parent just decides they don't want to to basically ask for that forgiveness. And so what I'm saying is, um, we then really need to internalize that experience and say, I'm going to give this gift not based on you. I'm not going to give this gift based on what you deserve. I'm going to give this gift based on who I am, based on who I am. A
Mhm.
lot of people, I think, fantasize about receiving something from a king or from royalty because you know that if you get something from royalty, it's going to be high value. Why?
Right.
Because royals are high value. And so
Mhm.
we're royalty.
Yeah.
We're told that we're kings and priests, right?
Mhm.
And so this is an opportunity for us to give a royal gift when we give forgiveness. Now let's go back to the sermon from the pastor like 2 weeks ago. He mentioned the reality that if we don't forgive, we will not be forgiven.
Mhm.
If we do not forgive, we will not be forgiven. He said in the word that, like, okay, you will be forgiven with the forgiveness that you've given out. Now,
Mhm.
how do you want to forgive? What's
Yeah.
what's the forgiveness you want to receive? Because I tell you what, Veronica, as much as we may be in a position to forgive a lot of people, there are a lot of people who are looking at us saying that we owe them and they need to forgive us.
Mhm.
You realize
Mercy.
that. You
Yes.
realize
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And do we want that forgiveness? We've all wronged people at some point. You cut
We're
somebody off,
right. We've
range
done
of things.
right. Because we're not perfect. We're all sinful, and we sometimes don't realize it. This kind of goes into last week, this couple days ago sermon. I mean, we could be walking around thinking that we have it all together and we haven't done anything to anybody, but we're actually blind and naked and don't realize it.
Mercy. Mercy.
Yeah.
It's a blind spot. So the reconciliation, it's almost like a peace that you would set with yourself.
Mhm.
And it's a gift you get to give your parent that they may never deserve.
Right.
So and let me be a little transparent with this one, Veronica. Let me be a little transparent. As I reflect on some of the things and some of the ways that my mother raised me, right? I look at it and I'm like, that could have been done differently. All right. I think to myself, that could have been done differently.
And
You
I
remember
and
those spankings? You remember those spankings? Who here has ever gotten a fair spanking? And like a spanking where it wasn't a beating, you know? Like the
right.
parent was actually calm and all this kind of stuff, right? Okay.
They weren't
Bottom
angry.
line is my
Yeah.
mom will not be hearing any complaints from me regarding
Mhm.
her disciplinary measures at this point. At this point, bygones are bygones, and I'm much more focused on the value that she poured into me. I'm
Mhm.
much more focused on that.
Mhm.
I don't need
Mhm.
any apologies from her at this point. I am not looking at those things. I'm looking at, but you stood by me. You stood
Mhm.
with us. You
Right.
you weren't perfect per se, but you were perfectly loving.
Mhm.
Okay? You were the best that stood forward, that's for sure.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that's helpful to me. What do you think, sis?
I was just gonna say that, uh, when we view our parents as truly human and just looking at their as much as some people don't know a lot of history about their parents and maybe how they were raised or things that they went through. But when you understand some of the childhood traumas or traumas that they experienced throughout their life that kind of formed them, you start to have a change of perspective and you're looking at them a little bit differently. It doesn't excuse some of the things that they may have done that hurt you, but it helps you to be able to get closer to that space of forgiveness for them because you're having mercy upon them because we always say hurt people, right? Well, I say broken people hurt people, or traumatized, unhealed, or undealt with trauma hurts people. So, our parents, they're human and they've gone through things and they don't always do everything perfect. But I have
That-
found that is it helps to get into that space of forgiveness when you view things in that way. Go ahead.
That's a fantastic point because
Mhm.
most parents are operating in a mindset where they're comparing their behavior to what they've experienced. So
Right.
most parents are thinking, if you don't like this, you wouldn't believe what I went through. So
Right.
a lot
Hmm.
of them are thinking, I'm doing the best that I can that I knew how, and I'm
Hmm.
not we're not trying to really excuse it, but
No.
Veronica, I don't know if it would help you, but it might help to kind of imagine if your mom was in her right mind.
Yeah.
And if she did come to her senses and she
I
did embrace some empathy, what might her language sound like? Just
Right.
imagining that conversation, and maybe putting those words in her mouth that you need to hear. Just
Right.
imagining that and then crediting it to her, given
Mhm.
that she is not in the space to do it anymore.
Mm.
But this exercise might promote some healing for you.
Mhm.
Because, Veronica, at some point, you will need to experience forgiveness. And,
Yeah.
and this is kind of the process that this book was championing, this uncovering phase where you take the time to ponder the hurt that you
Mhm.
went through. And you
Mhm.
just, what did this take from me? You ask yourself those questions. The next phase being the decision to forgive, and just coming consciously to that, but I'm going to let this go, I'm going to forgive, and then doing the work phase,
Right.
shifting the perspective to, hey, this is where mom was coming from. Shifting, and it's hard, and that's why you can you
Yeah.
need therapy sometimes. And
Oh, yeah.
then the insights you get from that work phase, you then see, well, what insights does this give me in my overall life? How does this help me,
Mhm.
be a grander person in my whole life? So
Mhm.
it's an interesting exercise. What are your thoughts,
I
Sister
would
Tanya?
another thing that I was just thinking as you're talking and thinking about her original question is because she said her, and I think she said parent, I don't know if it's a mom or dad, but has dementia, it really could, and so it really could give you an experience of and so maybe put it this way, maybe, I mean, she is most likely not, or he or your parent, I shouldn't say he or she because we don't know which one it is, but your parent is not able to say I'm sorry or to cognitively know what's going on. And so, but this is an opportunity because this parent has dementia, that you can actually extend love to them and helping to not, being their caregiver. You don't, maybe that's not the situation, but you could still be doing kind things for them when they're in a space where we don't know what they did, but maybe they don't even deserve per se that kindness from you, but you're in a situation where you can actually extend and do that, and that could be part of your journey in forgiveness as well, showing love to a parent or to someone that doesn't necessarily deserve it because you were never able to hear sorry, or they never made amends or anything like that, and you're still hurting. It just reminds me of what Jesus did for us. He died while we were yet sinners, and like not even saying we're sorry because we didn't even repent or whatever. But he died for us. He died for a world, and so it's a powerful experience to walk and do what Jesus has done. There's actually power in that, and I think that could also help take you a step closer to forgiveness. That's a thought.
Wow. Well, Veronica mentioned that I guess in the past we've made the statement, you're not responsible for the trauma, but you're responsible for the healing, and so
Mhm.
that was somewhat helpful to her.
Well, praise God.
And she's kind of expanding. She's like expanding from that standpoint. But let's add this little footnote, Veronica. We are not sitting here saying this is easy.
No, it's not.
Let's make it very clear. This is not easy. It's interesting. One of the phases in forgiveness therapy is the work phase.
Yes,
It's not easy, but
it's a
my
process.
goodness, it's freeing. When you accomplish it, boy, is it freeing. Now, Amara is sitting back there like dropping like bomb after bomb. Like she needs to
I
like
know.
come on for a
I
second.
I saw that. I
Yeah.
saw that.
Amara mentioned that one of her teachers had her kind of
What
write down everybody that had wronged her.
I think it
And
was a
then,
therapist.
yeah, and
Okay.
maybe a therapist, and then
Okay.
write down everything as far as what they had done. And then somehow or another, she kind of released that and said that
Yes.
there were just so many miracles as a result of that. Probably the biggest miracle was the load that it lifted from you. Isn't that right,
Right.
Amara? You're not carrying that around anymore.
Right.
Like if I think this is really powerful because if you just stop to do any kind of inventory of all the people that have wronged you today, I owe
Right.
Sister Tante an apology for being so late.
You do
you
not
know,
owe me an
you know,
apology. No, no, no.
but you'd
You
be
don't.
surprised at all the people that, like you'd be, man, a lot of people have hurt me for one reason or another. And it is just so liberating to say, no, let me forgive these people because
Yeah.
I need to meter out the forgiveness that I want extended to me. I need to
Yeah.
meter out the forgiveness that I want God to extend to me.
Mhm.
Um, and again, when it's time to forgive someone, you are in a unique position where you get to give somebody something they will never truly deserve.
Mhm. And I'm just gonna speak to our couples, our people in relationships, even parents out there. Like, this is something we used to do with our oldest set of children before our younger set came. um, but we used to go through, and for those of you who are not familiar, well, we can go into a little bit more detail, but we used to go through this during our family worship, the steps of the sanctuary, the different articles of furniture. And when it
Oh,
came to forgiveness, like we would put our hand on the ground and like almost like slap, like we'd be on the floor praying or reading the Bible or something, and we put our hand on the ground saying like, we want to ask, we either the child or I want to ask my husband, like, can you forgive me? But we would do that within a 24-hour period, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Like, so every day
Hmm.
we were doing these acts of forgiveness, asking each other to, to forgive each other if we did something that hurt that person. And well, between me and my husband or the children or
Hmm.
whatever. But I just want to put that out there because I think it's really healthy to spend some time in retrospect for just that 24 hours, especially within a relationship or with family. Because again, a lot of our hurt and our pain come for those close relationships. And when we don't get them resolved, so much resentment and bitterness grows, and relation and marriages go south and can end up in divorce when you could have dealt with it a lot sooner, and just looked at you're reviewing your 24-hour period and just asking for forgiveness where you see you've hurt your wife or your husband or your child or a parent or a sister or a brother, whatever the case is, just a family member or a friend. It can be really healing. Go ahead.
You know what we should do next week? We should have a part three, but what we do is we look at forgiveness through the sanctuary furniture.
We could. Yeah. It
You
just
know,
came to my
like,
memory that we used to do that with the older
but
kids.
it's just so powerful. I think it's clinically relevant. It's so
Yeah,
powerful.
it is very
Um,
powerful.
it's clinically relevant. But all right, let's see what we
Yeah.
got. Please get your questions in because we'd rather not end before we get to your question.
No, this is
But
actually
we
a good
will.
question. This is a good question, and I may have missed some, but
Okay.
why is forgiveness so hard, even though you know it's the right thing to do?
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, I know. Well, yes. I just I'll take a stab at it. Well, and I know
Mhm.
Dr. White's going to too as he's processing that. Um, it's it's so hard just because of our sinful nature. I mean, I don't think there's any other way to to say it. It's it's like we want, like, when we go to God for forgiveness, we know and are expecting that forgiveness right away, and he does forgive us right away. Now, in our sin, we're not God, so we are, sinful. So even for us to work up to forgiveness, it takes time and it's a process. But I think it's so hard to even get there because of that we're just born in sin, shaped in iniquity. It's just it hurts when people do us wrong, and we have a hard time just reconciling what they've done, and we feel the pain in such a real way. Like, we weren't made to be away from people. We were made to have connections. And so when people hurt us, it is not natural. It's not natural for us to be disconnected, but that's what happens. And so I believe that's why it is so hard, because it hurts so bad.
I love that response. Uh, because I mean, so much of it I just resonate with so powerfully. First of all, when someone wrongs you, you're entitled to the fury. Like,
Mhm.
you're entitled. Like, why is it hard to let it go? Because you're literally entitled. Like, there's a reason why you would hold on to it. They literally took something from you. In a lot of
Yeah.
situations, sometimes they've taken something physically from you, but a lot of times they've taken things from you you can't even put your finger on.
Right.
You imagine losing something that you never even took the time to understand what it is, so you can't even
Mhm.
understand what was taken. um
Mhm.
it's profound, that kind of loss. um
Yes.
so you're entitled to it, and I think that's why it's hard. um
Mhm.
and your fury is literally justified, but
Mhm.
yet
It is.
God set the ultimate example. He set the ultimate, no matter how bad you've had it, no matter how bad you've had it, you
Mhm.
have not experienced the world you created crucifying you and forcing you to shatter your relationship with your father.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
you you have not had to you have not had to rupture your relationship with a perfect father in order to save the people you created after they betrayed you. No one has had to endure that.
Yeah, no, mercy. Yeah.
And it's in that context he said, Father, forgive them,
Mhm.
for they know not what they do. So it's
Mhm.
quite an example that was set. But that's why it's so hard, because we're entitled to it.
We are. We are. And I think if we and if we it's hard too because our and this is why the process takes so long too is like for our perspective to change if we looked at forgiveness as a gift to ourselves, like we're freeing ourselves from carrying this on for such a long for we don't have to carry it on longer than we need to, but we do need to process it in a healthy way. But if we looked at it as okay, I'm going to help myself. I'm going to free myself from this. And I'm also going to forgive because I love myself so much. I love my mental health so much. I love my physical health so much. The body translates stress and hard feelings towards another person in the same way. So, whatever stress does to our bodies that's negative, an unforgiving spirit for a long period of time can do the same thing. And we all know that stress can cause disease and wreak a lot of havoc in our life and in our mental health as well.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Thank you. Very interesting. Oh, and one more thing, and this is really important because most people, this is we could dub it the forgiveness trap. Okay, most
Mm,
people
like that.
when they think about forgiving, they go to the hardest thing. They go to the biggest thing that was ever done to them and say, okay, well, let me start the process here. Mistake. That's the forgiveness trap.
Mhm.
That's forgiveness quicksand.
Yeah.
Um, no, like you start off with lighter things that are easier and that you actually are able to shift perspective on. You're able to kind of walk through those various phases. Um, get some muscle, before you try to start lifting 500 pounds of emotional dead weight.
Hmm.
Um, so that's an important thing. Cassie, I
I
buried forgiveness towards my stepmother, and it took the Holy Spirit to reveal it to me many years later during a sermon. I talked with her, and it brought so much healing for both of us.
I love that. I
That's
love that.
powerful.
It is
That's
very
powerful.
powerful, because, Veronica had said, "Thank you for the advice that we're giving and from a biblical viewpoint point." And I just want to say that we're thankful that you're thankful, Veronica. But again, I'm just going to echo what Dr. White said that we know it's not easy. I know it from a personal experience that I held on to unforgiveness. I'm trying to get my math right, but for many years, for several years, it was just, and just like what Cassie said, when you work that out, and I didn't get to work it out with the person per se, but I worked it out with God. And it was just so freeing when I was able to work it out with God. Like I just view that person and other people who were involved in just a different the lens that I view them with now is just so different. And it was so healing for God to give me that. And he works with us because we're slow. I was being slow. It wasn't like God wasn't trying to give me that sooner than I accepted it, but
That's
I'm human
powerful.
and I'm sinful.
But
I'm
I love
born.
keeping it real. Look,
Yeah,
like I think it can be so deceptive that as we're speaking on these topics, we look like we're experts in the
yeah,
utility of it in our personal lives.
yeah.
No, we understand the
No,
concept.
we yeah, we have to work the process just like everybody else.
We understand
We
the
have to
concept.
work
We
it.
know how to guide a patient through this. That's the skill. We know how to conduct the operation. That doesn't mean we don't need the master surgeon to do the work on it.
Right. We need the master
So
surgeon
so
for sure.
that's absolutely important for you to know. I'm in a
Yes.
group, and there's a woman in there who claims that she had a traumatic childhood, but that she has forgiven her parents for that. Yet she constantly tells us about it. So has she forgiven? Okay.
Mm.
We must prophesy again. Thank you for the question. You know what's interesting? What's interesting is when people use language like, I have gotten past that. I have
Right.
gotten past that. Um, it's behind me. Or sometimes when people say, haven't you gotten past that now?
Mm,
As if it's this physical thing that you can actually leave, as opposed to understanding this thing is incorporated into every fiber of your being.
right.
And there's a process of getting it out of all those fibers, but it does live with you. So
Mm,
um I think we must prophesy again is highlighting that maybe they're viewing it as a mark of growth that you stop talking about it so much. Because if you're talking about it, it's a sign that there's still some work to be done.
right.
That may be true and it may not be
Right.
true.
True.
So it can truly vary, and that's where it's like we can't really comment on it because we don't know the details.
Mhm.
We just don't know the details, so it's hard to comment on
No.
it.
Yeah. I just want to. I'll say. I mean, I know we have another question. I just want to say really quick. I mentioned the situation that I had to go through the process and journey of forgiveness. That when I bring it up now, I bring it up in the sense of this is what I learned, and even learned about myself in that process. So it's like an educational piece. If I bring it up, it's not a oh,
Cathartic.
yeah, it's yeah. But I
It's
mean,
not
but
like
not to judge this person either, because I mean,
we don't
she could
know.
they could be past it. But I know
Right.
that, you know, it, everyone's a little different. There's no cookie cutter for that. Just because they bring it up
Exactly.
doesn't mean that they're not past it.
Exactly.
If you keep, and this is from
Kevin
Kevin
Spence.
Spence, if you
Yeah.
keep forgiving a person who chose to continue doing you wrong and there is no consequence to them, is that forgiveness?
Yeah. So the book kind of talked about some of these things. Kevin, you want to be aware that there's this thing called codependence, right?
Mhm.
And then so codependence really is sort of like doing for others what they need to do for themselves, what they can and need to do for themselves. And so you'll see people in relationships with these horrible dynamics at times where you know the victim keeps being violated, but they make excuses for the person. And Kevin, that's kind of what you're sort of describing. And in those kind of situations, what needs to be analyzed is what are some of the invisible dynamics? What is the victim experiencing as a payoff so that they're tolerating having their boundaries violated and they're not enforcing any consequences? Um, so that's an important thing to investigate, but that's not the forgiveness that we're talking about, right
Yeah.
now, because um it's almost like there's some hidden thing that could be explaining why they're continuing the behavior. Can't
Mm,
speak specifically to that situation. What we're talking
right.
about though is just some of the bigger principles that may be relevant in some other scenarios that we've seen. But it's a fascinating thing for us to talk about. It's interesting. So when you're not enforcing boundaries, or setting boundaries and enforcing consequences, despite being wronged, then it's time to pull back and say, is there a hidden payoff? Is there a
Mhm.
payoff that I am not bringing to consciousness that is manipulating me and leading me to make this poor decision? So definitely worth exploring that. Thank you for the
Mhm.
question, Kevin.
Yeah, it was a great question. Great question. So yeah, we have about 10 more minutes of time for a few more questions. So please put your questions in the chat, or even if it's a helpful comment, please put it in the chat as well. All right,
I
this
see.
is yeah. Oops, is it up
Yeah.
there? No, here it comes. I think it's coming up now. My personal litmus test to evaluate whether I have truly forgiven someone is that when I think or speak their name, I'm wishing them well and not what they did. And I'm thinking of them negatively.
That's nice, Amber. That's
Yeah.
nice. I would say that's a pretty good litmus test. For me, It's when my blood does not boil when I think of them.
Yeah, I mean, I have to. Yeah, I have to say that
um,
too. Yeah, I keep.
yeah.
Mhm.
It's
And there's
what were you gonna say?
well, there was another one. I'm keep going back to that my situation because that's but yeah, I agree because my blood used to boil when I thought of them, or I just was like, oh, but now it's
Exactly.
just
It's
like
like
so. God is
it
good.
is. It is what it is. You
Yeah.
may have addressed this before, but what helps a person to forgive themselves when they hurt someone
Mm.
else? What helps a person to forgive themselves when they
Ah,
hurt someone
yeah.
else, intentionally or unintentionally? Cassie, what a great question.
I know.
Ooh-wee,
I feel like this
what
is
a great
her
question.
second great question of the night. She gave
What a
another one
great
earlier.
question.
That
I
is.
mean, now, according to the book, when it's talking about forgiving someone, it's really trying to center the forgiveness on that other person. It's
Right.
it's not it's not championing forgiving a person because you're going to benefit from that. So
Mhm.
just so you understand, if you're going to be a purist, it's really championing. It's really making it about that other person. Now, by default, you're going to benefit from that.
Mm.
But one of the asides and one of the cool asides to participating in this discipline of forgiveness is that you develop the muscles to forgive yourself.
Yes.
As you engage in this process over and over, you're learning the art of forgiving yourself. And
Mhm.
we need that art because if you have any measure of consciousness, you're going to recognize you're hurting people. You've hurt people
Mhm.
knowingly or unknowingly. Either way, you hurt people.
Mhm.
And and you've got to appeal for forgiveness, and most important of all, you've got to forgive yourself. You've got to recognize you're not perfect.
Yeah.
You're not perfect. um I think we had
Mhm.
this question before. If you keep forgiving a person who chose to continue doing you wrong and there's no consequence. So we did
Yeah,
we
we
answered
did cover that one. Kevin Spence, we covered that one. We answered that, but I just want to piggyback on that one that about the forgiving yourself. I feel like um when you forgive yourself and there's a complete, I mean, that's a true, if you're feeling convicted, like, man, I hurt this person, I did something that hurt somebody else, like, you have so much, um, just you're hurting for them, you're hurting that you did that, and the apology and the sincerity that you're going to ask for forgiveness from that person is so much more real, I think, when you are actually in the process of learning how to forgive yourself as well. And it's that type of passionate forgiveness for yourself that moves to the other person that helps you to not do that ever again. Like it moved you so much, it's like, I will never do that again. And by the grace of God to keep you, you won't.
That's interesting, Sister Tante, because what's interesting is one of the phases of forgiveness is uncovering. So
Mhm.
here it is, this person is going to need to forgive you, um, and they need to uncover. So now, how powerful is it when you can join them in the uncovering experience and share with them and show them,
Mhm.
no, I'm uncovering. This is everything that I did. And they're able to experience that, oh my goodness, you really uncovered. You really understood what it is that you did. As opposed to what usually happens where people are like, I didn't do that. You should get
Right.
over that. It wasn't
Right.
that big of a deal. It's like you're covering it up.
Mhm.
And so the uncovering is what kind of moves forward the possibility of healing. But as you cover it up, then it really hinders the healing process. So it's very deep. But I'm struck by how, if you come to a person having really engaged in the process of uncovering, it's like it moves the process further along than if you're trying to
Right.
cover it up.
Yes. Yes, most definitely. We have a question here, Leon Riley. Hi, brother Leon. He was one of our members in Campbell and a good friend. Um, is there instant forgiveness or is it a process?
Well, I think Leon, brother Leon, um, I think you could see how it would be insulting to you if it felt like a person really didn't take the time to engage in that uncovering, to engage in
Right.
that process of understanding what they took from you.
Right.
Um, and in like manner, if a person does forgive you, um, like I'm sure we've all gotten the, "Ah, it's no big deal." Now,
Right.
which is more convincing? "Ah, no big deal. I ain't even thinking about that. Forget about it." Because we
I
do
want
get that, and I got boys like that, that where it's like,
right.
don't even sweat it.
Yeah.
And it's like, I understand their language, I get it, but at the same time, it's really cool when a person pauses, and it appears like they really experienced it, and then they
Right.
turn around and they're like, you know what, I understand it. I'm not gonna front that messed me up a little bit, but don't worry, we're good.
When a person is when you see a person that's broken over how they hurt you, that means they took the time to like to process it. I mean, and a healthy brokenness, if you will, a brokenness that helps you again to not do that thing again.
Right.
So definitely a process. The only time that I think is when I saw that question, I thought, when forgiveness is instant, it's when we're dealing with our kids.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Like,
Yeah.
even my husband said one time, he was like,
Yes.
"You're so long suffering with them." I was like, I don't know how not to be. You just feel like they're in their journey of life and it's
That's
okay.
funny because he looks like he's long suffering
He no, no, he is. How can I no, he is long suffering. He's
in his own
everything
way, I gather.
everything that you think he is, he is, but I don't know. A mother's
You
heart is
you you
like,
guys are probably long suffering about different things.
yes, I think so. I mean, I don't know. I think, and I know there's the fathers. I mean, I'm not a father, so you have to speak to that, how fathers respond to, I mean, I just think as parents, I mean, like we don't typically hold grudges typically, I'm not saying this doesn't ever happen, but we don't hold grudges against our kids. Like they mess up and they majorly mess up. And here you are trying to give them the whole world and they're like, messing up. You're like, what are you doing? And then
Leon,
we're so quick to forgive them.
Leon, that's the one place I gotta give it to you, like where you get instantaneous, forgiveness. Like it's like I already forgave you. Now, if you come back and you're actually like, I'm sorry, I'm not waiting for my kid
Yeah.
to ask forgiveness 9 out of 10 times because they don't even know what they did. And I'm just
Right.
trying to get them to that next level. So I'm not trying to crush their whatever. So
Right.
if so you already forgiven, and then if they come and actually ask for forgiveness, that's a bonus. It's like
I know. You're just crying of just happiness and joy of like, oh, you asked me to actually forgive you. It
I'm,
just
I'm
puts a
not I'm
cherry
not
on
crying.
top. Well, okay. Well, I'm crying. I would if my kids say forgive me, mommy, I'm crying.
That's deep. That's deep. That's deep. No,
I'm
I
crying.
feel you.
You're
I feel
crying.
you.
You have an emotional side, I'm sure. I'm gonna ask Florence about your emotional side. Or your daughter next time I run into her.
It takes a lot. It takes a
It
lot.
takes a lot.
It
Yeah.
takes a lot. I
Yeah.
mean, but the it hits me deeply. That's for sure. It
Mhm.
definitely hits me
Yeah.
deeply. But no, we love to forgive our kids. No question about that. No question
We
about
do.
that.
We do. We love to show mercy to them. We have 2 more minutes, so we could take, let's just
Yeah.
say
Take the
one
last
and
one.
one question, one more question. Let's see who can get it in there. Maybe 2 if it's a fast one. This has been a fun topic.
It really has been. It really has been.
Yeah, when you mentioned part 2, I was like, do we have enough for part 2? But yeah, we sure do
Yeah.
have enough. And what we shared today is not what we shared last week. So
No, it's
it's a
totally.
blessing. All right.
Yeah.
So,
She said
okay, Veronica.
sometimes Veronica came back. She goes, sometimes trauma can cause you to think you're at fault, and realizing the truth about forgiveness takes you to a different place in God's view, I think. Let me read that again. Sometimes trauma can
Yes,
cause you to think you're at fault, and realizing the truth about forgiveness takes you to a different place in God's view, I think. That was powerful.
that is
That was
very
absolutely
powerful.
powerful.
Yeah. Yes,
So,
definitely very.
I
Oh,
will
wow.
conclude. I will conclude with B. Davis, and just thanking you for your question,
For
which
sure.
started us off. It is courageous to be that transparent about where
Transparent.
you are.
Right.
I hope you felt love from us, and please
Yes.
forgive us or forgive me if you didn't feel love. But we we appreciate the question, but more than
Mhm.
that, if you feel any zeal, it's that we want you to get the help you need. Get
Yes.
that help, and it requires serious intervention.
Yes.
This is a good place to also remind you: the first therapist you go to, 9 out of 10 times, you either won't resonate with them or they might not have the
True.
skills, right? But
Right.
when you find the one, oh my
Yeah.
goodness, oh my goodness, hold on to them for dear life. And
Definitely.
yeah,
Definitely so.
but give
And
it a chance.
yes, definitely give it a chance. And just want to repeat that while you're looking for the therapist, sometimes, we're guilty. Sometimes you call a therapist, you leave a message, and it takes several days to get a call back, which
Totally,
is
man.
sometimes
Because what
people
do
are
you
not
want?
in situations where they can wait. So I
Yeah.
just want to repeat the 988. If you're having any thoughts or feelings of suicide, you can always reach out to 988. That is 24/7. And that's the National Suicide Hotline across America. And there's going to be someone on there that can help you and be there with you while you're having these emotions. So definitely 988. It's very easy. Whoever came up with that was very brilliant. It's like 911, no one you can forget. 988 is for mental health, and 911 is for other emergencies. So definitely utilize that. I wanted to, someone, oh my goodness, we had Evangelist Sonia, that's what it says, from Pakistan. And that was like
Wow.
this. I know.
Wow.
So welcome, Evangelist Sonia. I just wanted to say a special welcome to you, even though we're ending right now. It was good to
Yeah.
have you here with us at Mental Health Mondays, so far away. It has to be, I don't know what time. Sonia, put in the, or yeah, Evangelist Sonia, please put in the chat what time it is there. I just can't
All
imagine. I
right.
know it's tomorrow sometime.
So
But we
so
just,
I just got a text from my good friend, Sister Janelle Maines, and she's like, "Have you ever heard of the book, The Hidden Half of the Gospel?" Yes, Janelle, I've heard of the book, The
all
Hidden
right.
Half of the Gospel,
Okay.
that deals from a spiritual standpoint with this issue of forgiveness.
Yeah,
Guys, thank you for your questions, Sister Tante. Always a pleasure
always.
collaborating.
Yes,
And
and thank you to all of our viewers, and please like and share this program. So many people need to hear this message. This
absolutely,
message
shout
is
out
so
to you,
very
Clint.
important. Yes. And Evangelist Sonia at 7 a.m.
Yeah.
All right. So you started
Oh,
your morning
props,
off with forgiveness. So
props. That's
yes.
awesome.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for
Take
letting us
care,
be a
everybody.
part of your evening or morning. We'll see you soon.
Take
Have a
care.
good
Bye
evening.
bye.
Bye-bye.